And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome tonight the incredible Nina de Gramont here to tell us all about the Christie Affair, which comes out tomorrow. And tonight is her special exclusive pre-launch event, the first event in the US. And Nina is going to give us the scoop. So sit down, buckle in, and get ready for a really good time. Nina, welcome. Tell us about the Christie Affair.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Before I even talk about the book, I want to say that I did not tell Sarah how to pronounce my last name, and she did it perfectly. So you are great at languages.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I always want to get people's names right because that's your identity. Names matter. I always say, correct me, please, if I'm wrong. So I'm delighted I got it right. Yay!
I appreciate it. So The Christie Affair is a novel based on the true 11-day disappearance of Agatha Christie. In 1926, her husband asked for a divorce, and that night her car was found abandoned on the edge of a lake. Her belongings were in the back seat, but she was nowhere to be found, and a gigantic search was launched, global headlines. She wasn't particularly famous at the time. She was just sort of up and coming, but still must have been a slow news week because all over the world, headlines were talking about her disappearance. And this book is my very fictional imagining of what might have happened during those 11 days and the reasons behind it.
Well, your very fictional imagining, which is racking up all the praise. Oh my goodness. Most anticipated by Goodreads, Create and Cultivate Women.com, She Knows, Bookish, Barnes and Noble. I could go on, and I will. The book that Shelf Awareness calls ingeniously plotted and gorgeously written. Hashtag goals, starred reviews from Kirkus, from Booklist, Publishers Weekly raving that it is superior and gripping. Oh my God, I am gripped. I can't wait to get into every delicious detail because the details are good. But first, I just want to welcome everybody. So we are streaming to 6 different places right now. We're streaming to YouTube. We're streaming to Facebook. Whether you're watching on Murder by the Books channels, my channels, in Mystery and Thriller Mavens private Facebook group, in Bitchy Bookworms, wherever you're watching from, you're in the right place. This is the right time. If you've been here before, you know how this works. If you're new, oh my goodness, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Here's how it works. Every Monday for hashtag Mystery Monday, because you know Mondays can be murder, I give you my hand-picked featured authors, and you get to ask them anything. Readers, you know you want to ask these authors about their books, so get the questions going in the comments, and I'm going to get them right on over to Nina. Let's dive in. Anissa Joy says, hi, Sarah and Nina. I'm so excited for the release of this book. Yay, Anissa, such a pleasure to have you as always. Anissa's a bookstagrammer. She does a lot with friends in fiction. Last seen live streaming with Jenna Bush Hagar. She's oh so fabulous. If you're watching from a private Facebook group, Facebook does keep you private. It's very mysterious, very on brand. So someone is saying they can't wait to read us. You can click a privacy agreement and then we will get to see you, but you can stay mysterious too. Catch a Clue says, Nina, congratulations on your book, from Wendy. Wendy, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much. Can't wait to read this. The Peace Corps joining us from YouTube says, good evening, ladies. So looking forward to reading the CA. I'm going to call this the CA from now on.
I love that. Me too.
Anissa says she loved this book so much. Anissa, right? It's so great. Deborah, welcome. Kathy's joining us from Texas. She said, this is one I will have to read. I'm intrigued by that 11-day disappearance. Kathy, right? We're going to get into that. We're going to grill Nina up real good about her research because I need to know about that 11-day disappearance too. Sharon is saying hi from Minnesota. Sharon, welcome back. Always a pleasure to have you, ma'am. The Peace Corps is giving us love from YouTube. Loving you. All right, let's get into it. Nina, you are a professor of creative writing, and clearly you know how to write a book because this book is getting all the praise. So let's talk about that 11-day disappearance. So I watched the Netflix series. I know so many of us, we're all here because we love Agatha. We love mysteries. Let's talk about your research process into that 11-day, still unexplained real-life disappearance of the creative mysteries.
So I read a lot of articles. I read Agatha Christie's autobiography, though she doesn't mention in the autobiography the disappearance. She talks really frankly about her divorce and the end of her marriage and her heartbreak around that time, but she omits those 11 days. Um, so I really wanted to. I did read a wonderful book called Agatha Christie and the 11 Missing Days by an author named Jared Cade. And he breaks down really intricately sort of movements of the police and what was going on while they were looking for her. What I did was read the first 90 pages of that book, and then I stopped reading it after that because the first 90 days, or 90 pages, he describes all the things that I would need to know. And then he goes into his theories about what might have happened. And I didn't want anybody else's theories in my brain. I really wanted to make up what happened on my own.
Oh, I love that because it's such a balance, right? You don't want to get accidentally influenced
Exactly.
by somebody else's ideas or somebody else's, theories or whatever. And that's fascinating that Agatha isn't provided no explanation for that. Anissa is saying she's getting some feedback on my side. Anissa, let me know if that's still a problem. I heard that for a second too. I think it just was a technical glitch, but let me know if it's still a problem because I know that's really annoying and I want to fix it if it is. Anissa would like to know, what was your inspiration for the point of view of Nan for this book? She loved your take on the 11 days. So for those who haven't read it yet, because it is not out yet, who is Nan and what was your inspiration to use her as the POV, the point of view?
Thank you so much, Anissa. I thought it would be interesting to imagine a mistress and a scenario where Agatha and her husband's mistress, who obviously are natural rivals, might come together and become unexpected allies. To do that, I decided to recreate Archie Christie's mistress. His real life mistress was named Nancy Neal. So I made up Nan O'Day to put in her place, and that way I was able to give her a backstory and motives that hopefully make her, if not sympathetic, interesting.
And she is very interesting. So clearly, you took the Nan from Nancy. So let's just start with the facts. So Agatha's husband, Archie, Colonel Christie, did in fact have a mistress. Now, that's not usually a sympathetic character for most of us. That woman thieving so and so, that little tart. Did you struggle to make Nan a sympathetic person? I mean, that we all don't want to he stole Agatha Christie's husband, Queen Christie, Queen of the Mysteries. I mean, how did you make Nan not hateable and in fact a compassionate character?
I guess I just really tried to make her three-dimensional by giving her a history, giving her a family, giving her a backstory and some tragedy and dreams that were derailed. Now, we find out that Nan wanted to be a writer, and because of some tragedies in her life, wasn't able to become that. So she and also I tried to give her a lot of sympathy for Agatha. She's not enjoying the pain that she's causing her. She feels badly and likes Agatha, admires her, is concerned about her. So just the way, in a way, the way you approach any character you want to make a round character, gave her an interior life and gave her a history.
Anissa is saying that is very interesting. She loves your take on it. Anissa, I totally agree. Sarah, fellow Sarah, so obviously a super, super cool person, mystery thriller maven there. She's saying, I have not read this, but it is going on my list. Sarah, order the book tonight. It's coming out tomorrow, and the good folks at Murder by the Book will send it out to you tomorrow. So I'm going to pop the link, the pre-order link. This is the exclusive pre-launch event. This book ain't even out yet in the world. So I'm going to pop the link in the comments. Grab your copy tonight, and it's going to be in the mail to you tomorrow because it is one tasty tribute to the Christies. Leslie is saying hi from Kentucky. Leslie, welcome to the conversation. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight. She's saying, I am fascinated with this story. Leslie, tell us what your fascination is. Is it the mistress? Is it Agatha's 11-day unexplained absence? Is it something else for you? Tell us about it. Susan saying, could one thing be one possibility be amnesia? Nina, your thoughts on that?
That's what she said. She said she didn't remember. Her mother had died the previous summer. She was really devastated by that loss. And what she said was the combination of her husband leaving her and her grief over her mother sort of sent her into this fugue state. And she, thought she was. One interesting thing is that when they found, she was discovered registered at a hotel, a spa hotel in Yorkshire, and she was registered under the last name of her husband's mistress. She signed the guest book as Teresa Neal, and she said she believed that she was this woman from South Africa who was visiting England for the first time, and she, had a massage every day at 3 and danced when the band played We Have No Bananas and had a luxurious dinner every night until she was discovered there.
What? I'm sorry. I'm going to need a minute and maybe a glass of wine to process this. Oh my God, I did not know this. So in real life, Agatha Christie claimed to have amnesia, and that she had entered a fugue state. Now, a fugue state was a very popular thing around the turn of the century, like hysteria. The condition of hysteria was popular in the 1800s. It was a thing that women and also some men could enter a fugue state and just not know what was going on. Your thoughts? Do you think she was truly in a fugue state, in an amnesiac state, or was Queen Christie, who was known to weave a riveting tale, making up her own fictional tale about what she wished that time to be? What do you think, Nina?
I just don't know. I don't know. And I mean, of course, the great mystery of this whole event is, as I said, her car was found, as if it had been in an accident and she was missing. So what people really don't know is how she got from that point in Newlands Corner in Berkshire all the way up to Yorkshire. So I don't know. I have no reason to doubt that she was in state of amnesia. At the same time, it is interesting to think what might have been at play were that not the case.
Ooh, interesting indeed. Okay. Let's see. So Leslie is saying what fascinates her about this whole thing, aside from everything, is Agatha's disappearance and what really transpired, right, Leslie? Because we're all here because we love mysteries. And the queen of mysteries, the most successful woman writer and maybe writer altogether, really did disappear. This is just absolutely fascinating. Anissa is saying she doesn't buy the amnesia theory. She's hopeful that somewhere the 11 days really that will be explained. Maybe she just journaled it and someone will find it. Ooh, like an Anne Frank diary kind of moment. I'd be here for that. Let's talk about I just love that she was getting a massage every day.
Well, in a way, it's just what you'd want to do when you're going through a horrible breakup, right? Escape from the world and go to a spa. Who wouldn't be rejuvenated by that? So there's a logic to it. The thing that's not logical is that, she was looking at newspapers. She must have seen that there was this great hunt occurring and that people were worried and all that, but she didn't come forward and tell anybody where she was.
And one of the points of view that you tell the story through is a detective recently retired, living with his mom, who is one of the hundreds of constables, British police, looking for her, which I loved that too. I love that you added a male perspective, B, a detective, because everyone else is on the inside. So we see Agatha, we see Nan, we see an unexplained woman driving a car many years later, also on the side where we don't know who she is. I mean, there's so many threads that you have woven in your clever web. I feel like Nina de Gramont is just sitting there like a spider, just enjoying us watching, reeling us in and watching us trying to wrestle with this mystery. Melissa Watson joining us from Australia saying, hi, Sarah and Nina. Melissa, always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Nina, let's get into some of the incredible praise that your book has earned. So, Publishers Weekly deeming this a superior thriller, gripping. So let's talk about from a craft perspective, because you are, as a professor, Melissa's saying this sounds very juicy. Oh, Melissa, it is juicy. You got to grab your copy tonight. As a professor of creative writing, you study the craft of writing, you teach the craft of writing. So how do you, as a writer, then write a superior thriller that is, quote, gripping, according to Publishers Weekly? I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank you. I think you have to sort of put any perspective adjectives out of your mind and just get engrossed in the story yourself. You know, I thought about the different aspects of the story and the way I wanted to tell it. I thought about the kind of books that I like to read and just try to entertain myself. You know, you're sitting at the computer and you're making up characters, and moments when I was getting swept away, I felt like I was onto something that might work in the end.
What moments sweep you away the most, without giving away any spoilers? Is there a moment that you, either as a writer or as a reader, then later revising your own writing, that you found yourself transported, where you were like, this moment is like taking me out of the creator of the story? I'm here for it and I love it. I mean, where is that for you?
I think for me, I became very invested when I described Nan's history and backstory. She has a relationship with a young Irishman named Finbar, and I became very invested in their relationship as I was one of the things about Agatha Christie and Archie Christie is he was, I think, kind of a hard man. I think he really wanted people to be cheerful and wanted people to fall in line and didn't want to deal with emotion. And you can see in her books that she's really interested in people who are not that way. You know, her detectives are incredibly empathetic. She likes people who feel deep emotion. So I wanted to sort of create male characters who were Archie's antithesis. And you know, the time period that this occurred was really interesting in terms of the aftermath of the First World War, what was going on in literature in 1926. You know, Winnie the Pooh had just come out, The Great Gatsby had just come out. So I just wanted to capture the way the war in particular could change young love and could change this character of Finbar, who I created as sort of this really joyful person. So that kind of got to me thinking about how life would change him.
Oh, that's so interesting, because I think from Nan's perspective, Agatha is also one of those, in a way, stiff upper lip British types, and Nan kind of looks at Agatha with from sympathy from her own Nan's own perspective, but she looks at Agatha as almost a little bit unfeeling, a little too British, shall we say, a little too stiff upper lip. But then Agatha looks at Archie that way, and it is fascinating to then see you portray Finbar, who is this incredible. I mean, you can't help but fall in love with this charming, handsome, dark-haired, blue-eyed Irish lad who comes over the hill. In Nan's early life. And I mean, you cannot help but love him because he loves dogs. Like, you got to love a guy who loves
does it for me.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. There's so many great questions, and we're going to get to every single one of them, because it is juicy. Okay. Okay. Great question here. How the heck did Agatha pay for things if she was suffering from amnesia? How did she pay for her room, for dancing, for massages every day at 3? I'd like to know as well. I mean, was she just running up a tab? How was
That
she
is
getting?
a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. I imagine it was kind of a cash world. I don't think that there were credit cards and things like that. Maybe she had a lot of cash. I don't know.
In your book, you say she had disappeared with only 5 or 10 pounds. So that certainly wouldn't be paying for the lifestyle of, that she disappeared with the fur coat, which was found in the back of the car, and only 5 or
Mm,
10 pounds in her purse, which is
yeah.
interesting. And okay, clearly we're mystery lovers here because we're gonna unravel this.
I do want to say too, it's important to remember that the dancing at the hotel and all that is what really happened. That's not what happens in my book.
Yes, 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 yes. And I think she's asking in real life, how
Yeah,
would Agatha Christie
I
have
don't know.
handled
That's a
this
really great question.
if she checked into, I mean, maybe she had cash stuffed in her boots, and on her person. That is a
Right.
I love that that's where your mind went. That is a great question. Susan would like to know, what kind of research did you do? So, Nina, walk us through that a little more. When did you first hear about Agatha's real life disappearance? And then were you just thinking about it all these years as a professor? You clearly know your way around some research. Let's talk about that. You didn't want to get influenced, but let's go through that again.
I worked on the book for a long time. I first found out about her disappearance from an article by Matthew Thompson that was in the lineup, that I'm sure you can still find online if you're interested. And then I was really most interested in researching the time period. And honestly, with a lot of that, I would read Agatha Christie's novels. I will say, too, her autobiography was incredibly useful because she really liked describing sort of the nuts and bolts of her life. And she described her house. In her book, she writes about exactly who was on the staff and little things like that. That before I came to that, I was like, oh, how am I going to figure this out? I have no idea how a British household at that time would have been run. And there was Agatha there to tell me, well, they had a butler and a maid and a cook, and her secretary doubled as her nanny, and little details like that were super helpful.
But Nina, I mean, you went really deep into it. So there's a scene where the detective being called out of retirement, where he's kind of happy to get away from living with his mom for a couple days because he's 40 and he's probably not super thrilled about living with his mom. He's taking the train and he himself is reckoning with what we would now call PTSD from having served in the war. And I noticed that you even referenced, there's a woman in his train car who doesn't love that he's smoking, but she says, oh, there wasn't any more seats or tickets left for the non-smoking car. And I thought to myself, wow, Nina de Gramont actually went to the trouble of figuring out, of researching whether there were smoking cars and non-smoking cars in 1925 in England. I live for details like that. I mean, a little tasty Easter egg, I think the cool kids call them, where you plant them throughout, and research nerds like me are like, yum, 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 yum. I love that. So
I love that you chose that detail, because the reason I know that is from reading Agatha Christie novels. And she's writing from a time when it's not research, it's the way we would write about 2022, right? So it's funny because my brother read he double checked the proof pages for me, and he came to me saying, I don't think they would have a non smoking car in 1926 in England. And I was like, look at it, here it is in an Agatha Christie novel right from that time period. So that was really helpful. And I wanted it to be sort of a combination of different styles, but really um, be an homage to Agatha Christie and the way she wrote. So I tried to pay close attention not only to the details that she used, but the way she sort of constructed her backdrop.
did you say her backdrop?
Like
Yes.
how
Okay.
I always tell my students that when you're writing a novel, you're responsible for the set design and the costuming and all that sort of thing, but you have to sort of
Ooh.
decide how much you want to give your reader, because different writers go different directions with that. And she has a pretty light touch. So I wanted to be a little
Ooh.
reflective of that style.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because when I read that scene, I thought to myself, I bet that I was like, non-smoking cars, people didn't know about the hazards of smoking back then. They weren't no I mean, nobody worried about lung cancer or emphysema or whatever in 1925. But then I thought, Nina de Gramont is a college professor. I bet she took the care to do this right, and you did, of course. That's amazing. Okay. Kathy would like to know, was there any time that you felt like this may be what actually did happen to her?
No. No, I never did. I knew that this was strictly from my imagination and that it's wildly unlikely and improbable this is what actually happened to her. And I mean, I think that's kind of the beauty of different people coming up with different versions of what may have happened is everybody's mind kind of goes to a different place.
Do you hope that the mystery is solved, or do you like that open-endedness and personal interpretation?
I like that open-endedness, and I think it's kind of beautiful that somebody who made herself so incredibly famous and successful um, with a structure that sort of gives us a mystery and then ends by solving it has this one personal mystery that she refused to ever solve for us.
I like that. I'm a person who likes closure. I'm like, but I have to know, Nina. I have to know. I cannot rest until I know. And I'm thinking to myself, perhaps I need to cultivate a little more Nina and a little less obsession. Kathy, thanks for the great question as always. Ooh, Melissa would like to know what piqued your interest in the story. Yeah, let's talk about that moment, that inciting incident for you.
So I thought how, honestly, how embarrassing it must have been for her to have caused such this giant fuss that was not only national but international. And I don't know, it made me really love her to think of her being so vulnerable, not only so heartbreaking that she would have to run away from everything, but then that she would have to stay in hiding. She just seems to be, I mean, she went to heights in her career that few people ever do. I mean, I think she's the best selling author of all time. Um, and so to think of her in the situation where she was heartbroken like the rest of us and vulnerable like the rest of us, I think is really touching. And it's good to think of her surmounting it too. I mean, one of the things that's interesting about the story is I think we've all been in that place where our hearts are broken. We can't bear that this person is leaving us. Please don't
Mm.
go, please don't go. And then the person's gone, and it's the best thing that ever happened to you. I mean, her life was much better after this marriage ended.
I know I have been. I've definitely been in that moment. And at the time, your heart is so broken and you just would do anything to escape that pain. And then years later, you're like, thank you, universe, for setting me free.
Exactly. And it makes you a deeper kind of person on top of everything else, you know?
And yet you said that you think Agatha would have been really embarrassed by the national attention, and yet she was reading about it in the newspapers from 48 hours out and wasn't embarrassed enough to say, "Oh, I'm just at a spa." She let it go on for 11 days. It's fascinating.
Part of the mystery for sure.
Part of the mystery. Leslie is saying she doesn't know either. She has my own theory, but there's no facts to hang on to it. So to say, well, I think we're going to need to know your theory, Leslie. You can't just dangle that. Oh, she's now Leslie's reeling us in. I love it. Um, Leslie, if you're comfortable, do share. Ooh, Kay is saying non-smoking train cars in England, 1926. Wow, I'm impressed, not to mention surprised. I am too, and clearly it wasn't about the health. It must have just been about the smell. I mean,
Yeah, I imagine. Who wants to emerge covered in smoke?
especially if you're wearing a nice, lovely fur coat,
That's right. That's right.
which now would be faux fur. Um, let's talk about some more of these incredible reviews, Nina, because I mean, you are just blowing up. So Booklist awarding you a starred review. And I love this one because they said the author weaves a clever, highly original, mesmerizing tale filled with strange and unexpected turns. So again, to be awarded the incredible, to earn this kind of praise, to be superb writing. Let's talk about, oh, sorry, let me pop. You can only see part of it on YouTube. Okay, I'm gonna pop this up again so we can see our faces, but I'm only gonna pop it up for a moment. But let's talk about this. Wonderfully imaginative, superb writing, clever, highly original, mesmerizing. I mean, wow, Nina, and I totally agree. This is a fabulous book. Let's talk about from a craft perspective, though. How long did it actually take you to do it, soup to nuts, start to finish?
It took about 5 years.
Okay. And walk us through that process. Was it all revisions? Was it all creating? Was it a blend? Let's get us.
I'm a big reviser. I'm a big believer in writing a first draft that's not going to look anything like the final draft. For me, the first draft is the hardest, but I really like having something to work with. I will say that the first time I sat down and wrote the book, the first 50 pages were Nan's history, which now is not only much longer, but sort of threaded throughout the book. But that was the first storyline that I was really taken with and concentrated on. And I just wrote a couple drafts, then I took a break and concentrated on research, concentrated on studying the time period, reading Agatha Christie novels, reading books and articles about her life and about the disappearance itself, learned about the First World War, learned about the Spanish flu epidemic, just sort of all the little pieces that I put in there but didn't really know very much about. I tried to educate myself a little bit more.
Excellent, excellent. I like that you took the time because I think, there's so much pressure right now to go faster, harder, better, not just in the writing world, but everywhere. We are a culture that values and praises speed. So I love when an author, when a creative takes the time to let the work marinate, to ripen, to develop, to shape it and let it rise and then knead it back down and let it rise and knead it back down. And you end up with a more seasoned, deeper, more in my experience, enriched and enriching experience. I can always tell when a book has been given the time that it needs to marinate and to ripen. And I think part of what I loved immediately about this book is that I got that energy. I could tell that it was well researched. I could tell that it was polished and honed again. So absolutely loving that.
Thank you.
Nina, Anissa is saying she's looking forward to meeting you in Savannah in a few weeks. So are you heading out on book tour?
Yes, well, because of our friend COVID-19, it's limited. So I'm doing some events online, but I will be at the Savannah Book Festival, which I'm really looking forward to. I've never been to Savannah before, but I've always wanted to go, so I can't wait.
Savannah is gorgeous. Those trees with just the branches. Oh my gosh, it's in a beautiful old historical city. You're gonna love it. And I'm so excited you guys can meet in person. That's gonna be fantastic. Melissa saying the dichotomy of incredible success professionally and some personal sadness. Yes, let's talk about that. So here's this incredible successful woman in a time when most women did not work. Most women did not write. The world was not friendly toward women being out there. Here's this woman who's transcended boundaries, and Archie maybe can't handle that.
I'm sure that was part of it. I'm sure that was part of it, that he was, and I mean, I'm sure I didn't know him personally, but based on just sort of the kind of man I imagine he was, and the fact that her star was on the rise, I just can't imagine that wouldn't have played into it. And also the woman he chose to replace her, I mean, who would be, but wasn't nearly as career oriented, or she wasn't somebody who was going to outshine him.
A safer choice for a man who needs to be the dominant force in the room.
Yes.
And you talk about that both from Nan's perspective, that which I think is really interesting because she is thinking about Agatha. She is thinking about being the other woman. Susan saying maybe Agatha was testing Archie's love, something you also consider in the book, that both Archie and Nan are thinking, is Agatha doing this to get Archie's attention, not national attention, but to pull him back?
I think that's certainly a possibility, that maybe she thought if she really worried him, that he'd realized how much he needed her. Certainly crossed my mind.
Anise is also saying, could this have been a publicity stunt? One of the best ever. I mean, as you said, she wasn't as big when she went missing. I mean, Nina, are you going to go missing for 11 days and then we find you at a spot and all of a sudden your star is blowing up?
I don't think that's possible in this day and age, which is another aspect of the story I think that's really interesting and why it's fun to sort of place it in the 20s. I mean, you just can't disappear like that and, be found safe and well right now. Personally, I think it would be really out of character for her to have done it as a publicity stunt. I just don't think that she was that kind of person. I think she's pretty modest, pretty self-deprecating. And a lot of people do theorize that it was a publicity stunt, but I don't imagine that it was.
It sounds out of character for her, both as a person and as a British person, especially.
Yes.
Leslie saying, I do not think she had amnesia. I think she knew what she was doing and did it as leverage in her divorce from Archie. I think she didn't expect it to blow up the way it did, but she felt she had to follow through. Interesting theory. Nina, your response?
Sure. That could be it. That could be it.
Kay chiming in, is there something in the air these days that has helped kick off a resurgence of interest in Agatha Christie? In your 5 years of writing your book, were you aware at some point that Lori Raider Day was also going to publish a book with a connection to Christie, also in your time frame? Thanks for all the hearts up on Facebook, you guys.
I did not know about that particular author's project. I did know that this was something that a lot of writers were interested in and that there'd been movies made about it and that it was a story that had been told before. So I really just tried to concentrate on making it my own story and really fictionalizing it in a way that whatever anybody else decided to do with it, no two writers would be doing exactly the same thing.
Well, I think it's safe to say, having read it, nobody else is going to take this tact. Nina, this is, as Publishers Weekly and so many others have acknowledged, an incredibly inventive, incredibly creative idea. Debbie saying, great question. Did her 11-day disappearance hurting her writing career or help?
It certainly didn't hurt it. She published her first 5 books with a small publisher. She had just sort of broken out of that contract that she'd been stuck in, published with a better publisher, with a new literary agent, was really on the ascendancy. So I can't say whether it helped her writing career, although certainly a lot of people knew her name by the end of this disappearance. But I don't believe it hurt it. Although, I was speaking to somebody in England recently doing publicity over there, and they did say that there were some ruffled feathers for all the effort and all the manpower that had been put into searching for her.
Right, because if you have hundreds, think about all of the cases and all of the crimes that are happening. You have robberies, assaults. Look at the crime log of any police blotter, and yet hundreds of not just police, but actually citizens were searching the swamps, searching the woods, searching the fields by her house. They were dragging the pond by her car. An inordinate amount of resources, both police and citizen resources out there. People are looking for her. So
yeah, there were airplanes. It was the first time airplanes were used in the search for a single missing person. So yeah, a lot of resources were used.
Yeah, exactly. Fascinating. All right, fam, we got 5 minutes left. We're in the lightning round, so get your last questions in for Nina, as many as you can. We're going to do this. So get your little fingers flying. Meanwhile, I just have to share a few more of these incredible reviews. Kirkus also awarding you a starred review, and I believe it was the New York Times that called them reliably curmudgeonly. So we know that praise don't come cheap. They raved about it. It's actually a long review, so I'm going to pop it right into the comments and read it because you guys, it's so worth it. Meanwhile, Kay's got a question. Will your next book also be a historical mystery? Great question.
I think not. I'm the kind of person who starts a book and writes about 100 pages before I know whether I'm going to stick with it or not. So I have not yet landed on what my next book will be.
Did you
But
say
right
100?
now, yeah. And
Wow.
I will say sometimes I go back. Sometimes I'll write 100 pages and then think I can't do this. This isn't what I want to work on for whatever reason, and I'll put it aside. And a year later, I'll come back and say, "Oh, this is actually kind of interesting, and I've already written 100 pages. So why don't I see what happens next?"
So do you just have oh, go ahead. No, finish, Nina. Go ahead.
But right now, Kay, I'm not. I don't think it will be a historical mystery, but I can't say for sure.
So do you have just boxes of 100 pages, just stacks of boxes, like, of 100-page beginnings that you may go back to or may not all around your house or office?
They're tucked. They're virtually on my computer.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, the Peace Corps would like to know, so what's up next for you, Nina?
Um, I'm gonna write another book. I can't say exactly what it will be yet, but right now my mind is still full of the Christie Affair, so I haven't switched gears yet.
Of course, because it's not even out yet, everybody. It's not even out yet. So I just want to remind everyone, it is out tomorrow. This is Nina's exclusive pre-launch event. This is your incredibly exciting chance to get to ask this author anything. Her book's not even out yet. And I'm going to tell you right now, when I read it, I got this sparkly sort of feeling that I get every time I get that feeling, the book becomes a New York Times bestseller. So when I got this book months ago, I'm going on the record. I'm predicting it now. This book, The Christie Affair, is going to blow up, you guys. It is going to blow up. It is going to be huge, and it's going to hit the New York Times bestseller list. When I'm right, come back and ask me your next psychic questions. I'll get out the crystal ball and I'll just keep making predictions because it's so freaking good. And I'm not saying that because I'm psychic. I'm saying it because the book is that good and because Nina's incredible care and work and research and time and effort and love for 5 years pouring herself into the pages of this book has yielded an incredible book. But I really do think it's going to blow up. So mark my words, everybody. Jackie, thanks for joining the conversation. She said 5 stars. Thank you. I loved it. Jackie, tell us what you loved about it in the comments. I'm curious. Nina Debbie says, would you ever write about any other famous people that have disappeared in the history? Amelia Earhart, Glenn Miller. Ooh, good options.
If I were going to write another novel about a famous disappearance, it would probably be Amy Semple McPherson, it was around the same time as Agatha Christie went missing, but in the United States. And she was like the Tammy Faye Baker of her time, like a big, famous evangelical minister. And she disappeared for a while, and there was a great search and kind of a scandal about her resurfacing. So that is a little bit interesting to me, but I don't know enough about it yet to talk about it much.
Could you say her name one more time, Nina? I missed it.
Amy Semple McPherson.
I've never heard of Amy Semple McPherson, so that would already be absolutely fascinating. I didn't know that there were evangelical female preachers back then. This is very cool. Someone else saying, I can't wait to read it. Thank you both so much for the great interview. Oh my gosh, I'm loving this. Mame saying, I can't wait to read it. Thank you both. Oh, Mame, it was you. She said, I can't wait to read it. Thank you both for a great interview. And Nisa saying, it is definitely one that you can not put down. Exactly. Leslie saying, McPherson is definitely an interesting woman. Oh my gosh, I love that you knew who that was, Leslie. That's so cool. Anissa, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you being here as always. Nina, any parting thoughts? Anything you wish I'd asked you? Anything you want to share?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Just thank you so much, Sarah, for all your support and all the lovely things that you've said. This was such a fun way to kick things off. I appreciate your energy and your good wishes so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Nina. I mean, I just am so fascinated by the 20s. First of all, thank you for your kind words. I just want to hold that and say thank you. That is so incredibly kind of you, and I appreciate it so much. But I just want to say again, I loved this book. I love the 1920s because it's such a fascinating time for women and for humanity. We just came out of World War I. And women actually we had an upsurge where women were really free. Skirts got really shorter. We went from corsets to being able to breathe. Always good to breathe.
Hair was cut.
Cutting hair. Oh, Debbie has one more question. What is the name of Agatha Christie's autobiography?
I think it's just called An Autobiography by Agatha Christie. But it
Wow.
is, I have to tell you, it is so delightful. And it's really funny because it's hard to put your finger on why it's delightful. And I think it just proves that she has this compelling, good humored, really human voice because it's kind of rambling. She jumps back and forth a lot. Like I said, she likes to describe minutia that you wouldn't necessarily think would be super interesting, but it is. And I will say too, she has a memoir. Her second husband was an archaeologist, and she went with him on digs to Iraq and Syria and Turkey. And she has a wonderful memoir of that called "Come Tell Me How You Live," and it is really a beautiful book and shows you how ahead of her time she was as far as her interest in other cultures and people from other cultures.
I mean, when you think about the fact that, it was not, you didn't just get on your commercial, 747 jet and take a flight to Syria, which by the way, most people wouldn't do today in 2022. Most people are not heading over to Syria for the fun of it. When you think about how she would have had to go by boat,
By
months
boats and trains, by the Orient Express.
by the Orient Express. I mean, that was what an incredibly brave, really cool person. Oh my gosh. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. This is absolutely amazing. Well, Nina, thank you for your research. Thank you for giving us this behind the scenes sneak peek on the eve of your pub day for the Christie Affair, which Kristen Hannah raves about. Again, another amazing review, saying that it is a genuine marvel, which I'm putting under hashtag writer goals, that to be called a genuine marvel. So thank you so much for sharing that behind the scenes. Congratulations on your prep day. And again, I want to remind everybody, this book isn't even out yet. It's so cool that we get to get an inside scoop the night before it comes out. Grab your copy tonight. I'm putting the link in the comments. And I will be back at the top of the hour with the amazing Eliza Jane Brazier here to give us the scoop on her brand new book, Good Rich People. I'll see you then.